on the heels of day 2 of the Republican National Convention. Good evening and thanks so much for joining us for 12 News at 6. I'm Kari Lake.
I'm Mark Curtis. Thanks for joining us. Although the RNC is happening in Wisconsin, a high-profile candidate from Arizona was front and center this afternoon. Arizona U.S. Senate candidate Kari Lake took the stage in Milwaukee, speaking on several key issues facing our country right now, including border security and the fentanyl crisis.
We want to make life better, and we want to create an incredible future for this generation and the next generation. And together, when we join together, we will make America safe again, and we will make America great again. The guys up in the fake news, frankly, all right, frankly, you guys up there in the fake news have worn out your welcome.
And that's how my one-on-one interview with Kari Lake started. Not on fake news, but on the role of journalists versus the role of politicians in this current climate. And considering the tone of this interview, we've decided to air it unedited. Kari, thanks for making a couple of minutes for us. We're just a couple of days removed from an attempted presidential assassination. And in the wake of that, many are calling for a toning down of the rhetoric, a lowering of the temperature across America. Where do you stand on that?
I think we need to lower the temperature. I really put the onus on the media. The media is the one trying to divide this country, Mark. I mean, it's about dividing and making people feel like we're at each other's throats. This country is not as divided as the media says, and I talked about that in my speech. And I think it's the time for some soul searching. We're in trouble as a country. We're not going in the right direction. And we don't have a lot of time to stop this absolute falling and faltering of America. And I know the people are with us, and I want to bring people together, and I know that President Trump does. His policies, Agenda 47, is the best policy I've ever seen. It's transformative for America. It's going to take our young generation, my kids' age and your kids' age, and give them access once again to the American dream, because they're being priced out of the American dream. We're watching as we have an invasion at our border, and we are putting up 12 million people who are here illegally. We, the people, the taxpayers, are paying for that, paying for their housing. They're taking jobs. They're driving down the wages of hardworking Americans, and it's got to stop.
Kari, I do find it interesting that you blame the media. In fact, that was the first thing you talked about at your speech in front of the RNC. You had a chance to address America at a time when America, in many ways, is dealing with the aftermath of the attempted assassination. And yet you chose to attack the media rather than talk about coming together as a country. Don't you think political rhetoric like that is also damaging? I mean, this is an industry, Kari, that put food on your table for years.
Mark, because the country is coming together. The country's much more united than you report. And sadly, you guys want to keep stoking hatred toward the people who are with President Trump and support him. You know, we've watched an 8-year smear campaign at the hands of the media against President Trump. Can you imagine waking up and having one hateful, lying story written about you, and then seeing that a whole bunch of other outlets did the same thing, and that going on the next day and the next day and the next day for 8 years? That's what's happened to President Trump. That's why there's hatred toward him, and it's the media lying. I've seen it. Yes, I did work in the media. For 30 years I worked in the media, and I worked with you, Mark, and I took pride in being an honest journalist. I walked away from my career when I realized it had become nothing more than propaganda. And I'm not willing to lie to the people. I walked away from a 7-figure contract. I'm not willing to lie to the people. We have very little time left on the clock, Mark. And we're going to lose this country if we don't come together. The media wants to continue to lie. The way they covered an assassination attempt against President Trump, the way they covered an assassination attempt, NBC News calling it loud noises, that the president fell to the ground and loud noises.
Kari, called it
absolutely
fake. Everyone called it loud noises. It wasn't just NBC, so let's not get that mistake.
No, not everybody did. Most normal people understood what was happening.
But you talk about the fake news, and yet one election lawsuit after another has failed. At what point does your narrative become fake news with your lawsuit once again in front of the Arizona Supreme Court?
Well, Mark, I'm glad to know the truth about you, that you're okay with Election Day being run with equipment that doesn't work in 61% of polling locations
Carrie,
and the
it's
wrong
been
ballots being
disproven
printed. I'm glad to
time
know that you're
after
okay with
time.
that. I promised the people of Arizona after that election, where we had so many hundreds of thousands of people disenfranchised, that I would fight and take my case all the way to the Arizona Supreme Court. And I have made good on that. It's at the Arizona Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. All we're asking for, Mark, is the Supreme Court to take a look at what happened and make sure that election officials across our state follow the law. We don't want any advantage. We want the election officials to simply follow the law. And that's what we're asking the Supreme Court to look at. And if they decide that way, that's great. And we're going to fight to make sure that we have fair elections, because I certainly want my kids to have a country. And if we don't have elections that are run well, my kids and your kids will not be living in the free United States of America. They'll be living in a communist country.
Says you. All right. Let me ask you about J.D. Vance. It wasn't that long ago that he called Trump's campaign.
Oh boy, now listen to this. Listen to this, Mark.
Trump's campaign.
Mark,
tell me if I'm wrong. Did he call it?
Rather than just saying, what is my opinion
cultural?
on J.D. Vance,
Did he
you're
call
trying
it
to
cultural
turn this into a
heroin?
hit piece.
Did he call President Trump cultural heroin? And if so, what changed along the way to make him Trump's vice presidential pick?
Wow, this is so interesting, Mark. Every question you ask is meant to be a negative question.
I think it's a fair question, Carrie. You're a former journalist. You would ask this question. If a guy calls a presidential candidate cultural heroin and then not long later is a vice presidential candidate, something changed. I'm asking you what changed.
You know what? You know what changes, Mark, right now with people? I just talked to a woman today here in Milwaukee. She said for 10 years she came over to this country, became a legal immigrant, and was a Democrat. And she said she listened to the news, people like you at 12 News, and I thought President Trump wasn't a good guy. She finally woke up and realized the news had been lying to her. People are waking up and they're recognizing how disgusting and fake the news is.
Well,
every question you've asked has been negative, Mark.
It's
Why do you
negative.
hate? Why do you hate? Why do you hate President Trump so
Not
badly?
negative at
Why do
all.
you hate
These are all
his approach?
truths. These are all truths.
What is true?
What is true? You've had one failed election lawsuit after another. Everything has been disproven, and yet you continue to file suit after suit, and you currently have a new suit in front of the Arizona Supreme Court.
I'm really glad that you don't care about election integrity, Mark.
Tell me where I'm wrong, Carrie.
I'm glad that you don't care about election integrity. I'm glad to know that you don't care about election integrity.
But how many times do I need it to be disproven?
I'm telling you, we're continuing to fight because we want our future elections, including the one in November, to be run fairly. And I talk to the people every day. They don't tune. I know where your ratings are. They're absolutely horrible. I don't know how you guys keep the lights on, Mark.
I don't either.
I really don't.
Well,
I don't know how they pay your paycheck. It's probably way too much. But let me tell you this. The people of Arizona, I know them, and they are saying, thank you for fighting. If we can just get these judges to say to everybody running our elections, you've got to at least follow the law. We just want you to follow the election procedures manual and the law. That's all we want.
Carrie, from where you
it's
sit.
good to know that you don't care about that, Mark. It's really good to know. You must be making a lot of money over there.
From where you sit, should President Biden step aside?
I think he's in a cognitive decline. That makes me very concerned over the next 3.5 months. As a mother, I'm concerned about our country. I know we can't handle 4 more years of Joe Biden. I'm worried that we can't get through 3.5 more months. And he's actually not in a mental state to do the job. And I think the Democrats need to come to grips with that and do something.
We're going to have to wrap it up
As
now.
a candidate for U.S. Senate, I want to ask you one immigration question.
I'm sorry, your producer is wrapping me up. It was great to talk to you again, Mark. I hope you'll wake up and stop accepting a paycheck to lie to the people of Arizona.
Maybe
Thank
one day
you very
I'll
much.
come to my
It's great to
senses.
talk to you, Mark.
Yeah.
God
Thanks,
bless you.
Carrie. We also reached out to Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego, who's running for Senate, for an on-camera interview. Just minutes ago, his campaign pointed out a specific moment in Lake's speech today at the RNC, where she claimed that Gallego supports non-citizens voting and called her statements a significant false claim. A Gallego spokesperson said, quote, "As Arizonans tune into the RNC convention, They'll be reminded that Kari Lake will say anything to get power, even if it means lying to Arizonans and undermining our elections. The statement went on to say that Lake remains focused only on herself, not Arizona families, which is exactly why voters will reject her at the ballot box yet again this year.